It's the Rip City Wrap-Up, brought to you by Dick Hanna Subaru. Believe in nice. Here are your hosts, Tyree Smith, Danny Meringue, and Joe Simons.
If you watched the Blazers play basketball tonight, you saw the most dominating performance in team history. Hello. Welcome into the Rip City Wrap-Up. Joe, Danny, Tyree will be back on Monday. Let us know what you think using the hashtag RC Wrap-Up. Dan, the losing streak is broken.
Yeah.
Hornets,
that's the story of the night, right?
The Hornets are awful. Everyone in the Blazers is amazing.
Ooh.
It's not hyperbole. It is the most dominating performance in Blazers history.
Yeah, no, it was. And around, I want to say halftime, well, a little after halftime, when I sat back down in my seat, I started digging into the annals of history, as it were. And
what's the number?
And I was like, this has an opportunity to get there. We'll see where it goes. And I looked it up, and I was like, it's really only 50. And I was like, I was a little surprised by that.
I had to check like 3 other times, too. Yeah. I thought it'd be like, all right, well, surely they've gotten to 57 or 58 or something like that. 50.
No, 50. 1982 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, 129-79. And to be fair, I thought it would have been a game in probably the mid to late 80s when scoring was crazy and the early Clyde Drexler run and gun teams were scoring $140 a night. But no, they set a new franchise record, 53-point victory. It got up to as much as 55 when the white flag was waved to start the fourth quarter. I was like, they're probably not going to get there, teams. But then I was like, oh, that's right. Nick Smith Jr. is out on the court right now, and he doesn't want to be there.
Also, Portland clamped down. Bari was doing his thing. Oh, they were still playing. There's no garbage time. In development time, like they were playing when the game, I won't say is in doubt, but in the first 3 quarters of the contest tonight. And that was impressive. But we've gone way too long without saying the words Moda Kamara. Unbelievable. He was a plus 45, and you heard Tommy's stats say that was tied for the best plus-minus in team history. LaMarcus did it about 12 years ago, one game. It felt like a plus 45.
2 of my favorite players of all time now.
Unbelievable.
Kamara is flying up the list of not just great players, but how he plays. I personally, as a human being, I love Two. Two's one of my favorite guys on the team to talk to. How he plays his game, how much he's grown, his intensity. He truly is showing that he might be special. And he got to 15-5 or 15-10-5, and I was putting together a post on social media. I'm like, this is Moda Kamara's first 15-10-5 game. Then he knocks down a 2, and I'm like, well, he's up to 17. And as I'm typing 17, he hits a 3, and it's also his first 20-10-5 game. And I'm like, okay, 2, slow down, brother. But beyond the 20-10-5 of it all, LaMelo Ball wanted absolutely nothing to do with Moda Kamara. This is not the first time this has happened, and not just for LaMelo Ball. Moda Kamara is a terrorist.
A banshee, isn't that what JJ called him?
JJ Redick called him a banshee.
That's right.
He could not have been more effusive in his praise. He wasn't even asked about Moda. He's like, oh yeah, and by the way, Moda Kamara, he's that guy. He's a banshee. When we talk about banshees, he's one of those guys. And you talk to anybody around the league, and one of the first things they'll ask about is Two. Like, what is Two? Where can he get to? How good do you think he could be? And coming into the season, I thought Two could be a guy. I think probably 15, 20 games of the season, I was like, Two will probably get some all defensive team votes.
Well, can we pause there real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to remind everybody where we were with Two going into the season. It was, all right, Two's been very impressive. He is now elevated from the bench to a starter. Like, it's where we were when the season started.
Really good starter.
And now we're at a point where it's like, him and Denny are really the pulse and the heartbeat of this basketball team because they play the style that every Blazer wants to play. And you're talking about his ceiling, and you start to get crazy with some of these comps, but then you remember that the guy, this is his second season. Like, the guy has not been around very long.
He's a little older, obviously, as far as a young player. He's 25, or will be 25 here shortly. But the style of basketball he plays, he's the kind of guy where, again, I know it's fun to go, oh, he's Scottie.
Scottie. That's the one everyone throws out immediately.
He's not. I don't think I shouldn't say he's not, because putting that cap on him isn't fair. But I'm also not going to say he is Scottie Pippen.
That's unfair to do to him.
Yeah, first ballot Hall of Famer, top 50 player of all time. But he is physically built just like him. You can say what you want. Like, he is built just like him. He moves like him defensively. He doesn't move like him with the ball. People forget the level of offensive player Scottie Pippen was. Remember, Michael Jordan goes away, Scottie Pippen MVP. Yeah, that's
elite.
Very, very, very good. But defensively, Toumani Kamara,
Yes.
he has gone from he's a guy who's going to get some all-defensive team votes to if he's on the all-defensive team, we riot. And I genuinely believe that if he does not make an all-defensive team, it will be a massive slight. If he is not a second-team all-defensive team member, the voters got it wrong.
Is that a positional team? Will they
No.
do center? So it's just the best five and then the next best five?
Yes, and you will probably have more centers on the first team. I can't remember if all defensive teams have the 65-game requirement.
Well, because we
Defensive Player
talked
of the
about
Year does.
Wemby not being eligible on Thursday, so he might be eligible, might not, as you said. And stupidly, some of these categories have a minimum threshold of games and some don't.
Yes, it's just kind of confusing which ones are which and where they fall.
Very silly.
I'm almost certain that it's all defensive team members also are held to the same 65-game standard.
Okay.
But and I asked Chauncey about this in the post-game availability, it's not just that 2 was good offensively or good defensively. Toumani Kamara, there's tracking data available from Second Spectrum. That's the company that is employed that has cameras in every building that picks up on all of the movement and
fancy data.
It's very fancy data. Yeah. It has the player tracking data that's put into computers and pushed through machine learning. It's taught kind of what to recognize and how to recognize it. And Toumani Kamara, going into basically in a given night, has the highest workload threshold in the entire NBA. He has the
Now, what does that mean?
The most amount of ground covered.
Okay.
So, but not only that, he also has the highest acceleration and deceleration workload in the NBA, which means he's the guy that is stopping and starting the most in the league. This is a guy that is going and going and going. He is the Energizer Bunny of NBA defensive players. It's one thing to do, like, when you think about guys like that, they're typically not looked at as guys that offensively are going to be that productive because their focus is on being a great defensive player and capitalizing on offensive opportunities. You know, you're a guy who's a spacer to the corner who knocks down some threes.
Sure. Which is kind of what we hoped 2 would be, again, going into the season.
Three
if
and
2
D is
can
the
knock
prototype
down
for a
some
reason.
corner threes, maybe he shoots 35%. What a bonus on a great defensive player.
Coming
like
into tonight, over his last 15 games, do you know what Toumani Kamara was shooting from 3?
Is he above 37?
45%.
Ooh, doggy. Wow, really?
He has been absolutely shooting the ball. And look, he's going to come down, and that's totally fine. Toumani Kamara is a 37 or 38% three-point shooter is a terrifying proposition. If you've got a guy who's taking 5 to 6 threes a night, shooting above league average at 38%, which I think 2 can genuinely get to, I think he's going to have some more volatility in his nights. I don't think he's the kind of guy, he's not Ray Allen out there where, you know, you're just going to consistently rely on him.
But wouldn't you expect that also from a defensive player, Dady, that there would be volatility because most nights he's not going to be, not necessarily a focal point, but not even a secondary, more like a tertiary option,
absolutely.
unless he kind of has it cooking and then you kind of find it.
But you also saw Toumani tonight capitalizing in transition. The Blazers had a NBA high 27 fast break points in the first half.
Wow.
I mean, look, there's a difference in when you talk about bad teams and tanking teams. That team tonight for the Hornets, that's an embarrassingly bad team. They
hate LaMelo.
Oh,
like,
well.
I'm not saying like as a personality, but like as a basketball player, like they have to hate the style of basketball that he plays because when you have someone like a Toumani Kamara that clamps him down to that degree and a guy who's playing so selfishly, like you could tell like, all right, well, pack it up. We're not doing anything this season anyway. I don't really care. And it just filtered around the entirety of the team.
2 put him in a trench coat. Anytime LaMelo Ball didn't have the ball, 2 just ball denied him. Over and over and over again. LaMelo just didn't even work for it. And you've seen that before with the Blazers when Anthony Simons was the only guy that teams really had to worry about. But when Ant would do it, he would take his defender out to like 45 feet. Like, all right, fine. You want to deny the ball from me? I'll take a couple possessions and let us play 4-on-4 and have a lot more spacing. LaMelo would just stand there, hands on his hips, 2 feet above the 3-point line and just go, all right, fine, bet. Like,
whatever.
And, I mean, he was god-awful tonight.
Yeah,
LaMelo Ball
really bad.
was awful in every 0 defensive resistance. Offensively, he finished 1 of 10, right? And I mean, his bricks were loud. They were bad. But a lot of that was too just saying, I'm not going to let you have anything easy. Everything he threw up was some sort of circus shot. And it's like LaMelo Ball is an incredibly talented player. He's one of the 3 or 4 best passers in the entire league. He had 3 passes tonight in the first quarter. While Alabama went, ooh, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's been an all-star for a reason, and he was a borderline all-star this year. Like, there's reasons for him getting the publicity that he does. He's a very talented basketball player. But in terms of, like, what that actual fit is, where he's one of the guys on a, I'll even say, contending team, not a championship team, I have no idea what it looks like.
On that team.
It'd be bizarre.
The mentality differences are so just polar opposites. But again, let's look at a guy like Tumani Kamara, who has Two is a dyed-in-the-wool killer. Like, and you can feel it. It emanates from him. Denny has that same nastiness, and you're feeling it become a part of the team.
And Scoot wants to be that too. Like,
yes,
Scoot
you can
plays
feel
that
him
way,
kind of clawing for
but
it.
he's
still trying to figure again.
He's like the younger sibling who sees the 2 older siblings doing the
I wanna
thing
be
and
like
is trying
them.
to emulate
Yeah.
that. And it's like at times he does it, and Scoot cares. Like it's a big.
But he's
part
also
of it.
3 and 4 years younger than
Correct.
those guys, and that's the thing you kind of have to remember is that Scoot just turned 21 2 weeks ago. You know, and Scoot ends up having a really solid performance tonight. Did he have finished with 5 or 4 fouls? Four fouls. I like that he was aggressive.
Absolutely.
I like that he was physical. I'd rather have to deal with somebody, again, the woe horse versus the giddy horse, reel him back in, be like, hey, don't quite be quite that physical. But you could just see it, and I think that was the story of the night coming out of the first quarter. The first quarter ends up going 38-21, and it felt like it should have been more than that.
Yeah.
Because the Hornets just had no interest. LaMelo Ball had no interest in playing basketball against Tumani Kamara.
No.
Mark Williams had no interest in playing basketball against Donovan Clingan.
Absolutely not.
I mean, he had no idea what to do with him, and this is the second time that has happened. On the road trip before, when it was a little dicey on that road trip, where
Are they going to lose this game?
Yeah, but Donovan outplayed Mark Williams. Like, the idea of Mark Williams is very good. He's 7'1", massive human.
And you see him make some plays, and you're like, well, I can see why the Lakers tried to trade for him.
But he just doesn't want anything to do with that. And when you're, 30-point-a-game type scorer and creator, LaMelo Ball wants nothing to do with Tumani Kamara, and your dive man wants nothing to do with Donovan Clingan, it's very difficult for literally anybody else to do anything. It's not named Miles Bridges. And Miles Bridges, he was the only guy who was remotely productive for the Hornets tonight. And you just kind of look up and down the box score. He only ends up playing 23 minutes because the game was over.
There's no reason for him to play.
No.
At 40 points at halftime. It's just, I think big picture, and then we'll get to, obviously, every Blazer, because everyone was awesome tonight. Coming into this game, coming off that Lakers loss, where the first quarter and a half, you're like, oh my God, I've seen rust, and then there's this. And to juxtapose what happened on Thursday with what happened tonight in terms of
they cleaned up basically
execution,
everything.
Rust, everything. It's like, this is the most dominating performance in team history. You can't have a better bounce back than this before they go on the road for 7. And we talked about it on Thursday, kind of a closing thought of, we really thought the floor was raised for this team. And I think tonight really shows that. Obviously, this is an outlier, right? But
no, they'll win every game by 50 now, right?
Even if this is a game where they win by 10 or 12, it was still that style of basketball that we wanted to see.
Yes.
The ball's humming around, help defense, flying on the floor, playing that Tumani, that Denny style that we want to see on a nightly basis. And what that does is it just makes your worst better. And that's where Portland is now. Their worst is so much better than we thought it was going to be.
100%.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing. They set a season high 37 assists. Here's the crazy thing about that 37 assists. Only one player had more than 5 assists. Tumani Kamara finished with 6.
Yeah.
That lets
Man's
you know
everywhere.
Everybody sharing the ball.
Yeah.
And, early in the game, it was, even when Portland kind of was scoring a little bit, Denny gets them off to the quick start. And Denny's incredibly aggressive. Ant had a couple misses that you think, like, oh, he'll probably find those. Jeremy had a couple misses. He'll probably find those. And then Shaden comes in. And after a couple misses, he gets going. He's the first Blazer to 10. Then I think Denny checked out. He had 9. Ant comes back in for his second shift.
Cooking.
And he just gets hot.
Yeah.
He gets 16 in the second quarter. And you knew the route was on. And you're like, okay, what does this look like after halftime?
Sure.
Like, this is a team that not no lead is safe.
But does it shrink to like 15 and you're like, why is this so close?
Why are you messing
What are we
around?
doing?
Don't play with your food.
And there was a little moment in the third quarter where like there was a couple of, I don't know, uncomfortable possessions for Portland.
Starting the third quarter, there was
Correct.
definitely we have these guys taken care of. They call the timeout. All right, guys.
But then foot on the gas.
I mean, they drove that thing off a cliff. I mean, it was reckless abandon from the Blazers, and it was comically bad how little resistance the Hornets had on every level of defense. They wouldn't fight over screens. They weren't rotating. They weren't getting down to bother shots. The Blazers only finished with 54 points in the paint, but they were 54 of the easiest points
Absolutely.
I have seen in the game, and it wasn't
layup drill stuff.
Yeah, and the times that they did get a body over to show help at all, the second rotation was never there. How many dump off passes did you see off from a driver? Or let me hand it to Donovan, dunk. Let me hand it to
Every
Bari,
other possession.
dunk. Like, doo-wops flashing down the lane in the fourth quarter, dunking on everybody, and you're just going. I have seen wet toilet paper offer more resistance than the Hornets. Like Chauncey Billups, when the Blazers got beat that bad, and talking about if you sleep well tonight, you're a loser. It was that and then some for the Hornets tonight. If you go home, if you get on that plane and you're the Hornets tonight, you should feel a certain kind of way, because that was disgusting basketball.
I mean, this is a team that beat the Lakers a few nights ago. Mm-hmm. So it's not as though they're inept to a point of,
well, to be fair,
historic.
They were really bad in that game. The Lakers were just worse. The Hornets shot 36%.
They scored 100 points and won.
Yeah.
But they did find a way to win a basketball
Those same
game.
Lakers beat the brakes off the Nuggets tonight.
That was scary. I don't know if you folks saw the highlights, watched under a blanket. It's terrifying what Luka did tonight.
Pretty good.
He might be back.
Wow,
now,
it's weird. He sits down for a night, and all of a sudden, magic healing.
It's going to be okay. Interesting. Don't be fooled by fake spring, folks, because winter is here. It is. You know that, Dan. It's the perfect time to check out the new 2025 Subaru models rolling in every day. At Dick Hanna Subaru, Subaru delivers with that lifetime powertrain warranty on every new car. Experience nice in the car business at Dick Hanna Subaru. Believe in nice. Visit them today and see why a Subaru is perfect for the season. And your next big assist, it's time for a deep dive into a shallow topic. That's right. It's Trend-BA. Can we get the Blazer box up, Mr. Zach? We got some exciting developments going on at the old Moda Center. Here it is, Danny. The new scoreboard situation at Moda.
Yeah, no, this is it's a much needed renovation. Don't get me wrong, I love the hustle board. It's nostalgic, it's nice, but this is a needed renovation to a building that is almost 30 years old.
It's wild to think about.
Crazy to think about that. When I was moving into my house out in Newburgh, I was putting random stuff away, the keepsakes, and I found a middle school yearbook.
Oh, cute.
And two of the things that are mentioned in there, the ice storm of 96, 97, and the opening of Moda Center, or of then the Rose Garden. And the burgeoning Lithuanian star of Arvydas Sabonis. And it was like...
What a time to be alive.
And I just remember looking at it, I'm like, oh, God, I'm old.
That video courtedy of the Trailblazers,
indeed,
by the way.
But you get to see, like... There's the wraparound video screens, the scoreboards and digital signage that's going to be there with the video screens in the corner. So because right now the only video screens in the building is the main,
right?
Not Jumbotron, because that's a actual name of a thing, but it's the big screen. I've had people ask me, why don't they have like the giant video screen like they do at Intuit Dome in Los Angeles or in Dallas? But the reason is because of the construction of Moda Center. They can't go do that because of the changeover of the arena and stuff like that. But I believe the press release states that the video board is like 54% bigger.
Oh,
so
wow.
So it's going to be bigger.
That's bigger.
And it's going to be updated. It has been updated once since they opened the building.
Yes.
But this is to modernize it. And I think this is one of those things where, for the fan experience, it's definitely one of those things it's going to make things better. And that's coming your way this summer. So when you come into the building next year, it should be there and ready to go. And I think that will, because there is, I don't really necessarily like this word, but there's some dead spots, on the wall where it's like you could have more there. And
yes.
They're going to, I think it will bring some more into the arena.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's a nice quality of life up there.
Well, the Blazers have always done a really good job because it is a 30-year-old building.
It's one of the older buildings in the league.
It doesn't feel like
no.
it. And also,
they've maintained very well.
Speaking historically, it's very trippy to think about the fact that the Blazers have played 5 more seasons in this building than they did the Coliseum.
It's nuts, huh?
Because it feels like they were in the Coliseum forever. And they were, but now we've reached a point where they've been at Moda for
it's forever
3 decades. It's Wild.
But no, it is cool to see, and there's more planned things that
Yes.
are coming to the arena, and I'm excited that fans are going to get some much needed upgrades and changes.
Okay, you ready for this insane stat?
That's right. You have a stat that you did not tell me about that you dug up yourself.
It's very easy to find. I just found it first. And
I was trying to-
I'm on a TV show, so here we
you
go. The Blazers have only one less home win than the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. The Celtics have 17 home wins. The Blazers have 16.
Wow.
The man said, wow.
That's not bad. Well, how many home games has each team played?
So Boston has played 27. They've actually
Blazers
lost 10 at
17
home.
and 10.
Yeah.
So Blazers are
16 to 14.
16 and 14?
Yeah. They've played more. Look, we're juicing the numbers a little bit. It's fine. We're
fine.
enjoying it. Yeah,
But
it's
I mean,
fun stuff.
you're there. I mean, you're over 500 at home.
Absolutely. Like 2 games over 500, playing
I tell
30
you what,
games and winning 16. of them.
Some season long plus minuses and things of that nature are going to take a pretty big bump after tonight.
No question.
You're going to see some lineup data that looks a little crazy. Like, wait, that was negative last night. Why is this a positive?
The
now?
numbers are going to go up. Something we talked about a little bit earlier that I want to hit on, I don't want to forget, is on Scoot Henderson. Because in a narrative for a long time, and the only reason I'm starting with the negative is because it provides a context to how good he's been recently. But he was shooting horribly, like historically bad for how many games he had played. Scoot is at 36% from 3 on the season coming into tonight, and he shot 60% tonight. So that went up. He went 3 of 5 from 3. If Scoot can get to 40% at the end of the season as a three-point shooter,
I think that's probably a tough ask.
it's a very tough ask. But being where he is now compared to where he was, this would have been a big surprise to us. He is on a very exciting trajectory, and he knows when to pick his spots now in a very exciting way where he doesn't necessarily have to take over a game in a way that he thinks to, right? Like, he doesn't have to score to be effective. He doesn't have to pass to be effective. He can be effective defensively. He can just be Scoot.
Yes.
And that is enough for him to warrant minutes and show development. And it's a very exciting thing for Blazer fans.
No, it is. After a little bit of a delay, my big Scoot Henderson profile
yes.
is
Is it
come
ready?
It's going to come out tomorrow.
Where?
Jack Frazee, patreon.com/Jack Frazee.
Get it.
And one of the things that's highlighted in there, and again, I'm going to use a negative to kind of prop up where he's at now. You all can't see it, but I'm going to show it to Joe on this visual here that shows a couple different things as far as where, like, it's a chart over the game history of 5 different players: Emmanuel Mudiay, Sebastian Telfair, Scoot Henderson, De'Aaron Fox, Darius Garland.
Okay.
2 of those guys are very, very, very good, and De'Aaron Fox and Darius Garland. 2 of those guys are very, very, very underperforming players in Emmanuel Mudiay and Sebastian Telfair.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're very familiar with one of them. Scoot Henderson's bottom out point, and when you're talking about metrics of EPM, estimated plus minus, it's a catch-all analytical grade that his bottom is lower than all those guys. But he also has right now the sharpest climbing peak of any of those 4 guys.
Sure.
And his peak, as you can see, Joe, actually is sharper than both Fox or Garland. Now, he hasn't caught up to those guys yet, but this factors in, the efficiency, how they shoot, how he generates assists, how he rebounds defense. Like it's a
How he does it.
It's a catch-all.
Okay.
For the metrics in the box score.
Interesting.
And it's not a perfect thing, but it is scientifically, it is the most accurate as far as a predictive model among all the catch-alls. So I use both EPM and BPM, which is box score plus minus, as the 2 models. They are the first and I believe 3rd most accurate based on regression models that show predictive ability.
Okay.
And
he is wearing
I
a
am
shirt that
literally
says
wearing-
analytics.
There
If
you
we
go.
can get that in there.
So
really digging into it.
Shout out Trailblazing.
Keep going.
But that sharpness in that period, that rise, he's shooting almost 48% from the field, 40% from the three-point line, and 81% from the free throw line. Like, that's not just a good player. That's a very good player.
Those are serious numbers.
And when you talk about, I'm giving away some of the goods here, but if you talk about like box plus minus, a 0 is an average level player. Scoot got down to a negative 5.2. That's out of the league type stuff. Okay. The way he is profiling right now over that period is a 1.8. A 2.0 is an above average starter.
Okay.
So the production on a per 100 basis That is a above average start.
Over how long of a period are we talking
it's
about?
It's about 22 games, if I remember correctly. It's from December 28th or 30th until February 14th or 18th. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head. But it's in that period, it was roughly 22 games. And it's not 1, 2, 3 games.
Sure.
The thing that we talked about off air during the beginning of the season, struggles, good times, bad times, I said, give me at least 15 games. Give me a sample of real stuff.
Because you see it one night, you'd see it a couple nights, you'd see it maybe for a week, and then it just regresses to a point where you're like, oh my goodness, come on, kid, you got this. But
even if you have one that drops out, that's normal. That's like
Jordan had bad.
Look, and here, the thing is about it that has been impressive is that despite maybe not having I want to say with going into the fourth quarter, he was still playing. I think he only had 8 points and 4 assists. But it didn't matter because he didn't force anything. He did everything in the flow, in the action. Like, you could see him pressing 3 months ago.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about like the meeting that he had with Chauncey Billups, the work he's done with assistant coach Chris Fleming and Pooh Jeter, like the stuff that they have gotten from those guys. That is, you start to see it in a night-to-night basis. And some nights, you don't have it because the ball doesn't go in the hoop.
Sure.
But it's not because you're doing things wrong. The first 15 games of the season, 20 games of the season, he's out there. I mean, how many games did we watch together? I'm going, what are you doing,
a lot.
man?
And even Thursday, we talked about it the other night at the Metropolitan Tavern. Thanks for having us.
Indeed.
That it looked like he was pressing too much.
Particularly from the three-point line.
I'm very excited. It's the first game after the All-Star break. LeBron is here. It's the Lakers.
Tonight was all flow.
Tonight was all flow.
And
it
he
felt
just lets
very comfortable.
Lets it come to him. And
not forcing it.
And the thing is, like, when you have a stretch of games like this, you get a stabilization effect, not only in the immediacy, but in the long tail run out. Like, if you just you look at the graphs for players, when you see these spikes that are this aggressive, they're typically very significant trend markers when they're this much over that period of time. And it's not in March or April basketball.
Right.
That pre-All-Star break, because a lot of the analytical models now are taking a lot of the side eye at March basketball. Because you get games like this where the Charlotte Hornets are throwing it out the window. We're going to see that with the Brooklyn Nets.
We're going to see a few more of them.
You're going to see it with the Washington Wizards. And it can really, like, if you look at Scoot Henderson's basically like last 6 games of the season last year, there's a game in there where they lost by 45, I believe, in the last game of the season. They got annihilated, but Scoot had a good game.
Sure.
But, like, what's the trade-off? What's the data?
It doesn't count the same. It's not apples to apples.
No. And I think you have to always kind of take that stuff into consideration. And I think these are, like, all very, very, very good markers for Scoot Henderson in the immediacy and the long term. And I think it signals a point of you don't have to worry about using that word, the B word.
No.
And I had people around the league like, do you think he's a bust? And he got so far down, I started to question. I'm like, it's still so early in his career, but guys don't get this low.
But it's also the same thing that we're talking about with the Blazers' floor has raised.
Yes.
I really feel like Scoot's floor.
I think he's the marker for that.
I completely agree.
Almost
because
dead in line.
Thursday's game, I feel like, was sort of where the floor is now. Like, Scoot contributed. He knocked down some shots. It was a little bit messy, but it wasn't like 7 turnovers. This guy can't stay on the floor. Like, that's not his worst anymore.
No.
His worst is like, okay, the kid's pressing a little bit too much. He's excited for the moment, and maybe some mistakes were made, or there wasn't as clean of a plan as we've become accustomed to over the past 3 weeks, over the past month. But you see it come together tonight, and you're like, all right, we're starting to accumulate more and more of these, and it's very exciting. I want to move on to Bari, because
what a night, man.
He had a hell of a night. He had 20 points, 14 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 assists.
And he went at Yusuf Nurkic's feet.
He went at Nurk, and
he just too quick for him. Look, we were both there watching that game when Nurk suffered a devastating injury. And unfortunately, he cannot move.
It's not the same.
Nurk has lost probably 60 pounds. He is in the best shape I have ever seen him in. And for a long time, I thought that was a bad idea for him when he came back from the injury even. But it was because his body just couldn't withstand that and move anymore.
So what is he, like 250? Is he less than that?
Nah, I mean, Nurk was well over 300
Yeah.
for a pretty significant part of his career. I would say he's probably about 265, 270.
I mean,
but I mean, Still a large
on that
man.
big of a frame.
Yeah, but I mean, like Nurk was 330 plus at one point
Is
in
that
time.
right?
Nurk was a monster.
Wow.
Nurk was an absolute monster when he first got here.
The fever, baby.
Yeah, no, but
What a time.
he can't move like he used
No,
to.
it's different.
Both age and injury just
Yeah.
have kind of taken that from him. And what he used to be able to kind of open his hips and track guys actually relatively well for a human being that size. Bari's played with Nurk. He knows kind of what he is and where he's at. And Bari wasn't licking his chops, but he was definitely like, oh, I know I can attack you. And
Right.
after Bari hit a couple threes, you're just sitting there going, oh, this is I'm sorry, he only hit the 1 3. He took a couple threes.
He did.
But it made Nurk kind of like, all right, I guess I got to step out a little bit. But Bari played with his hair on fire.
He did. And what I loved in the development time is that Delano Banton came in, and I'm thinking like, all right, well, DB is going to take 15 shots.
I want to give DB all the credit
That's exactly what I'm about to
in
say.
the world tonight.
Absolutely.
You know what he did? He knew Bari was eating.
Yes.
And he let Bari cook. And he also was like, you know what? Roops doesn't get a lot of tick.
Exactly.
Every time he got the ball off a rebound, he was looking for Roops. And he was like, let's get him. I want to get these guys some looks. And that's the sign of a team that is
Absolutely.
together.
Well, it's so funny, Danny, because I'm looking. Delano Banton, you're never going to see the stat line the rest of the season. 11 minutes, 0 for 0 from the field for your boy. I give him a lot of credit. I had the same reaction, Danny.
I turned to Sean Hyken, who sits next to me during the games, and I go, shout out to him, man. He is point guarding right now. He is like, you know what? Bari's cooking. Let me get him some looks. You know, Roops doesn't get a lot of tick. Let's get him the ball. Let's get him. Every time he's like, because Roops is flaring out on rebounds, trying to get up court, and he looked up, and I saw him catch Roops' eyes probably 4 different times, like, hey, I'm trying to find you.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to get you some looks. And, he got Roops the ball a couple of times. Or Roops, generated a couple assists, trying to let him cook a little bit. That was the thing about tonight, the connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Every coach's favorite word.
Yeah.
It's funny, J.J. Redick mentioned it pregame against the Lakers. And he goes, my favorite word, connectivity. It's become like the coach speak word. But the connectedness, the togetherness of the team, which was not there in December.
No.
Is there. And there is a camaraderie, there is a bond. And even with where this team is at and the very likely nature that they're going to end up in the lottery, they're still they're playing for each other. And Delano could have gone out there and gone full DB Hooper and probably gotten 10, 15 points the way that the Hornets are playing defense.
Now, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that is the closest you've come to saying that there is an alternative route for the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm not saying that you did.
It's mathematically possible that they could make the play-in.
They are 4.5 games out of the 10 seed in the Western
That is
Conference.
a massive number to make up. This is now what 26 games remaining?
26 games remaining.
That's a big
25. 25 games
You're right,
remaining.
because they came in with 27. So
25.
Yeah, 4.5 games in 25. Ooh, buddy.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. Fans, the game's over.
It is.
But the night, it's Saturday, baby.
Hey, just begin it,
It's
baby.
Saturday. It's just getting started. Let's talk about keeping those good vibes going, huh? With Best Day Brewing, the fastest growing non-alcoholic craft beer brand. It's the ultimate post-game play. We get to enjoy a great beer, or maybe even 2, without worrying about tomorrow. Because let's face it, celebrating tonight's historic Blazers victory doesn't need alcohol, so fans, make every day your best day. Find your nearest Best Day Brewing retailer at bestdaybrewing.com. It's time for Trembier once again. Danny's favorite topic, Cooper Flag. Let's go to the Blazer box. Here he is. This is courtesy of Fox. Watch Cooper Flag do Cooper Flag things.
This wasn't even his best play of the night.
It wasn't, but it's a play of the night for Cooper Flag in third-ranked Duke. So is he the Naismith? Thanks, Zach. Is he the Naismith?
I think he's going to run away with that, but Janai Broom had 31 and 14 for Auburn. It's those two guys.
That's good.
I think he had finished with 31 and 14 tonight for Auburn. He's a incredibly great college player, Janai Broom. He's going to get a shot in the NBA. I think he's going to be a late first, early second round kind of guy. I think he's a guy that a veteran team that is looking for.
Is he a 4-year kid?
Yeah, junior or senior? I think he's a senior. Got it. I have looking at like where guys are in classes outside of freshmen. I lose track of it all every single time. Cooper Flag actually had a play in this game where I'm going to use a thing that I've obviously become synonymous with the hezzy tween. Cooper Flagg drives a left wing. Hezzy's freezes 2 guys, splits 3 defenders, rises up, tomahawk, cocks it back and dunks. This is a game that I recorded to watch back later because Illinois also has a top 5 prospect in Kasparas Giakashionis. And I was like, all right, let's see how these guys look, like on like, now the different positions, but let's see what this looks like. How does Kasparas rise to the challenge? How does Coop rise to the challenge? And Coop and Duke just absolutely eviscerated Illinois, and he's very the betting money is on Cooper Flagg to win National Player of the Year, but even more than that, you look at his performances as they're getting ready to get into conference play and the NCAA tournament coming up. That is a terrifying team.
Like, if he rolls to the Naismith and they win a national title, like, Cooper Flagg is in that Carmelo Anthony rarefied air of like best one and dones ever.
He has an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And if you look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, like the way the seeding is going right now, Auburn is the number 1, Duke is the number 2, I believe. I can't remember if it changed the other night. But their bracket, they're in the East region, I believe. It is the weakest region. We still have a lot to be decided with the conference play.
Okay.
But that bracket, if it lines up that way, they have a very good chance of making it around to the Final Four.
Do we need to say if? Because it's a bunch of people in a smoke-filled room putting names in certain places.
Well, I mean, Joe Lunardi is the guy who does bracketology, and he bats basically like a 99%.
Sure.
He's got it down to a science. But you're going to have some upsets here in conference tournament play.
I understand. What I'm posturing is, wouldn't it behoove NCAA basketball to have Duke go as far as possible for interest because of Cooper Flagg?
Sure, but I mean, it's the way the seeding goes.
Sure.
It's just kind of where things fall. And I think it's going to be very interesting to kind of see how that tournament plays out.
It will be very fun. Your Portland Trailblazers, they're going on the road, bud.
They are. They're going to take their
gonna be
longest
very
road trip
interesting.
of the season, 7 games in 13 days to back.
Let's pull
on
up that
trip.
Blazer box, Zach. We got the schedule right here. So they're going on the road. They're playing some very bad basketball teams. It's almost like they're going on a music tour, Danny, and like this is the first leg of it.
They crisscross the country twice.
And then
it's very strange.
And then it gets really hard down here.
Well, those Utah Jazz,
I know.
They were game tonight. They beat the Houston Rockets 124-115. Keontae George comes off the bench, has 38 and 6.
Utah's been game.
They have. Isaiah Collier.
They beat Portland by 40.
The young player from USC, not a shooter. He's shooting under 24% from 3. Despite how teams are covering him, he is still finished the night with 12 points and 10 assists. He leads the league in assists over the last month.
Wow.
Not Trae Young, not Nikola Jokic, Isaiah Collier.
Wow.
Okay? So remember, this Utah team came up here and punked the daylights out of this Blazers team.
Oh, yeah.
Don't go in there and think that you're just going to have them roll over. Now, they could very easily go in there and roll over because it's the Utah Jazz, and they are also very much in line to go get the very large white boy from Duke. But after you have that game, you go and play an even more egregious level of basketball in the Washington Wizards.
They're not good.
It is, for people who have not watched them play, if you thought
first of all,
Charlotte was bad, most of you have not watched them play, and you should not watch them play.
Has watched the Washington Wizards play basketball this season?
I have.
That's why you're Danny Meringue and everyone else is not.
Well, I'm also sick when I want to watch Alex Sarr play basketball, who has been very good for the Wizards more recently.
Sure. Someone to watch.
But they are bad.
They're awful.
Marcus Smart, I believe, made his debut last night
good for him.
the
Is
Wizards.
Middleton playing for them yet?
I think he's ready to go. So
Okay.
you're going to see the Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton-led Milwaukee. Or, I'm sorry,
Wizards?
I said Milwaukee because of Chris Middleton. It's going to be really hard for me to say
It's
Washington
be weird
Wizards.
to see him in those
Chris
DC
Middleton.
unis. And then they go to Brooklyn, and then it gets hard on the back end.
The Nets beat the 76ers.
They did
Tonight. So
that was
the
ugly
bottom
finish.
of the NBA getting some wins.
Yes. Well, and Philly is in that category too. So you look at Philly and say it's a hard game. I mean, you're in Philly, so it's hard.
But
a
it's
road
also
game.
a back-to-back.
It
That
is
is
a
the one
back-to-back.
back-to-back on the trip.
Looking at this road trip, it'd be very easy to sit there and say, all right, we'll know what direction the Blazers are going to go after this.
We will. I think it's very, very, very easy.
I posture this, that if the Blazers do something like go 4-3 on this trip, and let's say they win a game they shouldn't, they lose a game they shouldn't, they go 4-3, and they're like 3 games back in the seat at that point.
I don't think you go 4-3 and you make up a game and a half.
I don't think Sacramento, I mean, it's a very valid point, but you look at what's going on with Phoenix. They're in real trouble. San Antonio, Wemby.
They did win tonight.
They did win tonight.
They beat the Bulls.
Even though, congratulations, even though San Antonio has won a couple of games, Wemby's gone. That's going to catch up with him at some point, you would think. The 10 seed, the 9 seed, like Sacramento, Golden State, they got Butler, so I think that's going to stabilize it probably a little bit.
And Dallas will probably slide down.
Dallas will slide down, but
also,
there's still a lot of depth
Do you
there.
realistically see any of those 3 teams falling out of that? Because I don't.
No.
Even though the Kings lost by, was it 24
Well, the
last
Sacramento one is so weird, Dan, because of that. That move is just recreating a bad basketball team that we saw a couple years ago in the Chicago Bulls. And Levine is having a great season.
Oh, you mean Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan with good European white big men?
Precisely.
We've seen this show before.
It's a very odd basketball team. And yes, maybe 4-3 doesn't pick up a game and a half, but maybe 5-2 does.
Yeah,
I know.
You think you're going to beat one of the Cavs, Celtics, or Thunder?
I'm saying if you do, that changes the conversation. Because let's say you get Utah. Just play with me.
Okay.
I'm in a sandbox.
Okay.
Build the castle with
Okay.
me. Okay. So let's say you get Utah, Brooklyn, you get Washington. Okay. You get 3 of those. You knock off Philly. Okay. What if you sneak up on Boston? What if you have a hot shooting night in Boston or a hot shooting night in Oklahoma? Like Cleveland, I'm not even going to entertain because of the big men.
The 3 best defensive teams in the NBA, you're going to have those nights.
I'm not saying that is going to happen, but I'm laying out a scenario.
Sure, anything
in which
is possible.
Things become more complicated when you come back home than before you left.
But it's also a 7-game road trip in 13 days
It
on
is.
the East Coast where you crisscross the country twice. You go
Absolutely.
from Utah to Washington, and you end the trip going from Boston to Oklahoma City, and you come home, and then you have a day off, and then you play Detroit before going back on the road again to play the Warriors before coming back to play the Knicks. You basically have a 10-game road trip.
You do. It's what, 8 out of the next 9 are on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very challenging.
One and back, and then back again. That's just
Absolutely. And
it's every other night.
And it could turn very quickly.
Yeah.
I think most of it depends on the Blazers. Some of it does depend on the teams ahead of them in the standings. If the Kings absolutely crater, I think it's a different discussion.
I think you have to have a pretty significant,
Yes.
world-altering event of cratering here.
I completely agree and we talked about this on Thursday about the prospects of Portland making it. So right now they're 23-33. The 10 seed is 28-28. So let's just say that to make the 10 seed, you got to win 41 games. That means Portland, down the stretch, would have to win 18 of their last 5 games to have a 500 record. That's a tall order.
I don't think it's happening, Joe.
I don't think it's happening either. But a lot of people want it to happen. A lot of people are excited about the prospect of what this team is doing. This team has won, now 8 of their last 9 at home? It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and there's another performance too tonight that we didn't talk about yet, and that was Shaden Sharpe, who is trying to think of the right way. He hasn't responded to being moved to the bench. Great. He's had some good nights. He's had some very poor nights. I thought tonight was one of his better nights for certain. It was significantly better than he was. I mean, Shaden was god awful in that first quarter against the Lakers.
So when you say respond, that's a really interesting thing to categorize because
Chauncey Billups is flat out challenging him to go take his spot.
Well, the reason
that's what's happening.
Yes, but does a 20-point performance do anything to dissuade that? Because he wasn't moved to the bench for lack of offensive productivity. He was moved to the bench for lack of spirit and
defensive intensity and focus.
And during this stretch, when he doesn't have it on that end to the degree that the rest of the team does, it is exacerbated. It is exacerbated because the rest of the team is playing with that style now. So it really is something that you're going to notice immediately on the court if Shaden just doesn't have that intensity. So when we say respond, Danny, what specifically do you think Coach Billups needs to see to start having that consideration? Diving for loose balls, getting up on people? Like, will we be able to notice it when we see it, or is it more intangibles?
It's more intangibles and intrinsic because you won't know it unless he makes a mistake, really. I think this isn't to throw basketball fans under the bus, but a lot of times you don't know the coverages that they're in. You don't know what responsibilities are.
No.
And you can make inferences and, those kind of things, but, there was – both Scoot and Shaden towards the end of the third quarter when they were on the floor, and the game's well in hand. They got back cut 3 plays in a row, and I was like, this is the exact time that you cannot do this.
Sure.
Everybody's watching the game, checked out, and just ready to move on to the next. This is when you should turn up. Don't relent. And it's tough to ask. You know, you'd be like, he's a kid. Da, da, da. Like, no, these are the moments that go, the moments that quote unquote don't matter.
Go eat.
Not just like that, but impose your like. This is the time when like coach is watching you, like on the tape. Yeah, the game's taken care of. How do you conduct yourself in these moments? Those aren't the ones I'm going to put the most weight on, but I remember sitting there tonight and going, come on, bud. Come on. Like, this is where you need to tighten up, focus. And to his credit, he did. After, they had a couple back cuts, it was like, okay, lock back in. Okay, that's what you want to see. When you make mistakes, how do you correct them? When do you correct them? And I thought Shaden did a good job tonight of making extra rotations, being where he was supposed to be. The 2 blocks, those are the things that show up in the box score. But it wasn't about the block. It was about the effort. He gets the recovery off a loose ball, closes out to Tijan Salon, and blocks a 6'10 dude who shoots up here.
Yeah, he got up. The replay was unbelievable.
And it was like, yes, Shaden, there you go. And you could see Chauncey, yeah, that's what I want to see, young fella. Like, those are the things, and it's not just the block shot, but it's the effort and the intention of that effort.
Well,
I think that's the thing that stood out. And against the Lakers, not only was it missing on the defensive end, it was missing on the offensive end.
Yeah.
There were multiple times in that game where he turns the corner. Like when the Blazers run Shaden Sharpe off dribble handoffs, DHOs, they're running plays for him to have an advantage of getting downhill. And when he settles and just kind of takes a pull-up 3 without testing the waters, the coaching staff is sitting there going, brother, you finished nearly 80% at the rim. Go. The Lakers, it's Jackson Hayes at worst. At best, it's Austin Reeves. Go put it on his head. And you saw him kind of turn away from those instances. We talked about that, following the game. Yep. And I thought tonight his level of aggression was there on both ends of the floor. I don't care what Shaden's box score is. Take the shot selection, the attitude and intensity. The intrinsic things from now until the end of the season are significantly more important to me.
I can't tell you how often we get comments about why isn't Shaden playing more? I can't believe Shaden isn't starting. This is bad for the team. This is bad for development. I've come full circle on this where
it's the exact right thing to do.
It is the exact right thing to do because someone, especially who's a young player,
as talented as he is.
Yes. You can't reward somebody who is not doing the thing that everyone else is doing on your squad because he is so talented.
Yes.
Like
if he wasn't that talented, it wouldn't matter.
Right. He just wouldn't get on the floor.
Do you want to go be, budget Zach LaVine? Go for it. That's no good for anybody.
The ceiling is so high, which is why you have to hold him to this higher standard.
Yes.
And Chauncey is pulling a lever. And regardless of what you think about Chauncey, you got to give him a lot of credit over the last month. He has really pushed the right buttons.
He now holds the franchise record for the largest margin of victory in a game.
He is the most successful single-game coach in Portland Trail Blazers history. That's what Chauncey Billups is.
Statistically.
There's nothing that you can do about it.
No, and I think the thing that really stands out for me as it pertains to Shaden is how can you come correct each night? And for all the people like, they're running Shaden out of town and this, that, and the other, I'm going to say something kind of out of pocket. If he doesn't want to be that guy and that's going to run him out of town, good. Good. It's not the guy you want. Period. Full stop. If he doesn't want it, you don't want him.
We can't make that declaration yet.
No. I'm not saying that that's it.
I know.
But I'm saying
I understand.
If that's the attitude, if that's the mentality, the fan mentality that's out there,
sure,
you don't want him.
I think.
And again, I'm not saying that is his mentality
correct.
right now. But
yeah.
I'm saying if he's
if
going
that
to fold,
turns out to
if
be
he's
the
going to
case.
crumple,
well, I think fans would agree with that, Danny, because the history of the NBA is littered with guys with a bunch of talent who didn't capitalize on it.
Look,
and it also has a lot of guys who didn't have a lot of talent, maximized it, and those are the people that are heroes in this city and across the NBA.
Than Shaden Sharpe?
Absolutely not. No one thinks that.
But what makes him better? The intensity, the focus. And it's like, I was talking to a scout down at the Oregon-Rutgers game, and there's this kind of battle over Ace Bailey, who's a prospect, who is incredibly talented, 6'10" with a ratchet. I mean, there's stuff that he can do that other guys just can't do because of his size and his talent.
Right.
But there are guys in this draft who have significantly higher levels of IQ, feel, intensity that I would rather take if I am a general manager of a team, because Guys that have that stuff, the intrinsics, all of the intangibles, but their talent's here, the talent can rise to match that level.
Yes.
If the talent's here and the other stuff, the intangibles is here, what ends up happening is this doesn't rise, this falls. And you can count on your one hand, the number of guys that had the intangibles and intrinsics that rose and actually figured it out. It is a short list.
We only have a few minutes left in the show, and we have the best fans. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We always really appreciate it. The Blazers got sent this from our friend P. Williams. It was addressed to all of us. He wrote us a poem for the Blazers and for Valentine's Day. So we're going to read it to close things up. Here we go. The Blazers have been going through a difficult phase. They've lost lots more games than they've won. For us, it's been far from fun. Will the year of the snake correct their malaise? Like the snake, Anthony's got clearer vision, and Scoota's made better decisions. Shaden's dunked with more spunk. DeAndre's got out of his funk. Jeremy's hit a lot of threes. Two money guards with expertise. Denny has uncoiled and runs like a flash. Even the bench has made a positive splash. This year, there will be more to navigate, but our future is more fun with a mixture of good and bad to contemplate. This Valentine's Day, we just got it. Let's continue to mix it up and appreciate what we've got. Go Blazers, go Rip City Wrap Up, go P. Williams. Thank you so much for sending that.
And
that is
don't forget
precious. It is the year of the snake. Made a little paper snake for us. Someone make a gif of that. That's fantastic. All right, the Blazers are back at it on Monday. There's a lot of games down the stretch.
Boy, do we have an early start, too. I love early starts. It just gets earlier and earlier and earlier as we go on the trip.
6 p.m. on Monday, 4 p.m. against the Wiz on Wednesday, 4:30 on Friday. And then, now, you're going to have to set your watches, set your phones. We got a noon 30 tip on Sunday.
Mwah!
A noon 30 tip. It's going to feel so weird
God, I love
to
those.
walk out of here and have it be like the middle of the day.
3:30?
It's going to be bizarre.
That's great. It's the simple things in life.
Guys,
It was fun tonight.
the Blazers had their most dominating win. This is the best win they've had in the history of the franchise.
We spent basically an hour talking about how great they were tonight. It's a lot more fun to do that than to be on the other side.
So much
of that.
more fun.
Look, I wanted to peek my head into that Hornets locker room or into the Hornets press conference.
Hey, Nurk, you okay?
And just be like, is it are we doing closed casket, open casket? What are we doing here?
We're starting a fun bit on Monday. We're counting down the top 25 Blazers of the 21st century.
Not of all time.
Not of all
21st
time, but the 21st century.
Somebody's
Clyde's
going to
not
somebody's going to get mad when there's certain players that
We're going
aren't
to
on there.
explain it. It's going to be fine. It's okay because we love you all so much.
Bye.